welcome to the first scripting tutorial in this series. So this series is going to teach you how to script on Roblox. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner, you have a little bit of knowledge, or there are just a few things which you want to learn that you don't already. This series is for anyone really, and we're going to be going over in detail everything to do with Roblox scripting so that you can become a pro. Alright, so let's open up Roblox Studio. If you don't have it installed, you can go get it from Roblox, although if you've played a Roblox game before, chances are it's probably installed on your computer. I've also got another video going over the basics of Studio and how to install it, which I'll link in the card and description. But let's go and open it up. And you just need to wait. It's usually quite quick. You might have to log in if it's your first time, but don't worry, if you see a screen like this as well, just ignore it. We're going to go and click on base plate, and that will just give us a blank area to work in. Okay, so in this video, the first video in the series, we're going to be looking at properties and what properties are. To begin with, you need to have these two panels enabled. Okay, these two panels are the Explorer panel and the Properties panel, and to enable them, you need to click on View at the top in this ribbon menu, and then you should just be able to click Explorer and Properties, and that will open them up like this. Okay, so the Explorer and Properties window, they are the most important panels you'll be using when you create games, and the Explorer lets you search for and see all of the objects stored in your game, and the Properties window lets you change them, so how they look or how they function. Okay, so Properties, there are lots of different objects in Roblox Studio. Okay, to get a list of all these objects, you can go on the Model tab and click on Advanced Objects. Just make that a little bit bigger, and here we go. There are loads of objects which you can insert into your game that do different things. Now, each object will have properties which contains information about what they do, how they look, etc. Okay, so we're going to insert a part to begin with. Alright, so you can either insert a part by finding it in Advanced Objects. You can either look for it or search for it at the top, or you can just click on Part over here. Okay, and that's just one way, well, a few ways to insert a part. So we're going to be focusing on a part today. We don't need to worry about all these other objects. We'll get to them in a future video, but we're going to be using a script to manipulate and do some cool things with this part by changing its properties. So to have a look at a part or any other object's properties, you just need to select it. Okay, so you can click it, or you can locate it in the workspace. For example, if you didn't know where this part was, or you had lots of parts in your games and it was hard to find a certain one, you could just look in the workspace, or you could search for it. Okay, and that will find all of the objects with the name that you searched for. So once you've found your part, you can press F on the keyboard, and that will move the camera directly to this object. So you can see we have lots of properties in the Properties window. So we have properties for its appearance, which change how the part looks, such as the colour of the brick. We have brick colour, which is a set of colours from a palette, which you can choose from. Or if you want a more detailed colour, you can obviously pick one in this RGB picker. Things like material as well, you can change the material of the part. Reflectance as well, which if I set it to something like smooth plastic, it's basically reflecting the light in the game, say from the sun. And things like transparency as well. We've got data properties, such as the name of the part, so I could change the name to be hello, and you can see the name of the part has changed, so that's what we reference with. We reference the name to find the specific part. We've also got orientation, which basically is the amount of degrees it's been rotated if you use the tools up here. Things like position, velocity, we won't really get into that today, but we have some important properties which you need to know. Okay, so anchored is a property, and the anchored property, if it is set to, if it's checked, then the part is going to stay in the air. Okay, it's going to stay fixed in the air. But if we set anchored to unchecked, it's going to fall out of the sky, okay? So anchored just means that it's locked in its position and it's not going to be affected by, say, like collisions. If it hits something, then this brick isn't going to move because it's frozen in the air. We've got can collide, and can collide it determines whether a part will collide with another part if it hits something, okay? So we've got can collide set to true on both of these parts. Now, let's just change the colour. If I get this part and I uncheck can collide, then the red part is going to just fall into it, like this, okay? In fact, the green part fell out of the world because it's not colliding with the base plate either. So they are important properties which you need to know, and we've also got size, but we're not going to focus on those today. They are just some simple properties, and you can see that by changing these properties, the part looks and acts in a different way. Okay, let's just make it transparent and, sorry, opaque and not reflective. But we had to manually change those properties, okay? But in a Roblox game that's running, we can't just manually change these properties. We have to use a script, because a script can automatically change these properties for us and automate our game. Every Roblox game that you play, such as Jailbreak or Death Run, has got a script running behind the scenes which is making the game work. So like running the rounds, checking to see if you've won the game, etc. And it's always changing properties, because properties is one of the most basic things you need to know to even get scripting. So a script allows us to carry out tasks in a specific order. We can tell the game what we want to happen, and then the game will be able to do these things and run itself automatically. So let's insert a script into server script service. So we're going to click on the plus and then click script. We're not going to do module script, just a script, okay? Now, as I said, a script will carry out tasks in order, okay? So whichever line comes first, that line will be the one which is executed or run first. So to change properties of a part, let's say we're going to change some properties of this hello part which we created, okay? We're going to need to reference this part, and reference just means tell the script where this part is, because the script, we can't just say hello and then we can't just say that, okay? We have to reference it and tell the script where this part is located, and that always comes first. So in our script, we're going to firstly get this part, and to get it, to reference it, we firstly need to say where the part is stored. So it's stored inside the workspace. The workspace is a store for all of the parts and things that you see in the game, okay? For example, if I take hello out and I put it somewhere like replicated storage, we can't see it, okay? So workspace is where all of the parts that are currently in the game world being rendered are, okay? So everything that you see in your game will be in the workspace. So we just need to get this part, which is inside of the workspace. Now, the workspace is a service, and there are loads of different services here. You can see all of these ones here. And these services, they do lots of different things. They house different objects for different reasons. But all of these services, they are together stored inside something called the game, okay? So if you think of our services as being in the pink square, and then we have our game, which is the outer scope, okay? So everything in the pink box, such as our services, such as the workspace, the lighting, etc., they are a part of game. So whenever we want to reference it, we have to say game first, okay? So we say game, and then we can do a dot, and a dot allows us to reference something that's inside of the game, or the thing before the dot, okay? So if we said workspace, okay, which is after the dot, workspace is inside of game, and game is its parent, okay, and workspace is known as the child. So game.workspace, we've just referenced the service, but we now want to get the part called hello, which is inside of the workspace. Now, hello is going to be a child of the workspace as it's inside of it, and workspace is the parent. So we're going to do another dot because we want to get something from the workspace, and we're going to just get the name of the part, which is hello. And you can see Roblox Studio begins to it begins to autofill the result. So we just write out hello, and we have just referenced our part in a script. It's just the same as selecting a part, and now we can see all of its properties that we can change. Okay, when we haven't clicked on a part, we haven't referenced it, and the game doesn't know what we want to change. So we have to tell it what we want to change. Okay, so we've selected it, and now we can see its properties, and that's pretty much the same as what we've just done here in the script. So now, if we do a dot, we know that the properties are a part of that part of the brick called hello. So if we do a dot, you can see the script, it starts to autofill all of these different properties which we can change. Look, we've got transparency, anchored, and brick color. So you can choose any of these properties. So we're going to do a couple properties to begin with. Only a couple though, just to keep it simple. So the property that we're going to change first is transparency, okay? And all properties aren't the same. They take different types of data, okay? So for example, we have transparency over here, and you can see the amount of transparency which this part has. Transparency is basically whether it's see-through or not. You can see it's a number, so we could have 0, which means no transparency at all, we can't see through it, or 1, which means fully transparent. So any number between 0 and 1 is going to affect the transparency. So 0.5 would be half transparent, okay? So it's a number. Transparency is a number property, okay? Because the value it takes, which changes how the part looks, is a number, okay? Whereas something like the name property isn't a number. It's a piece of text, but we call a piece of text a string, okay? So if we want to change the transparency of this part, we know we have to give it a number. So we've referenced the property, and now we want to set it to a new value. And because it's a number, we're going to say equal to. So we're making this property equal to a new number, a new value. And so we just put the new value after the equal sign. So I'm going to set it to 1, which means fully transparent, okay? Now, if we just go back to the game and we select our part, let's just set it to completely opaque, so we can't see through it. And now we can run our script to see if we've successfully been able to change the transparency. So we're going to click on the Home tab here, and then click on this arrow, which is underneath Run. It might say Play, so click on the arrow and click on Run. Run basically lets us run all the script in our game without having to join it. So let's click Run, and there we go. The part has gone fully transparent, and we can see through it. But it doesn't mean that the part's been deleted. It's still there, we just can't see through it, because we can select it in the workspace, and look, it's still there. And if we go ahead and change the transparency again, you can see 1 is at the end of the spectrum, and as we move it further to the left, it becomes opaque again. And that script has only ran once. Once it's finished setting the transparency, it will see that there's no lines left to execute, so it will just stop running, okay? So that is a very, very simple property, transparency. But I said there were other data types which properties take, because not all properties are going to take a number. For example, the material property, that is text, but you can also select them from a drop down. So there are 2 ways to set the material of a part. So we're just going to get rid of the dot transparency, but this time we're going to set the material. Now the first way is just by putting the text, okay, the name of the material in quotation marks or speech marks, okay? So if this is smooth plastic that it's currently on, and we want to set it to grass, we could just write grass in here, okay? And if we go and run the game, it should change the property to grass. There we go. And if we click on the part again and have a look in the properties tab, the script has automatically changed it to grass for us. Okay, Now the second way of doing this is by using an enum, okay? So an enum is kind of like, it gives you a list of properties to choose from. So you could write enum, and then you could say dot, and you then have to write the name of the property, okay? So I know we've written it out before, but we have to write it out again for enum. So when we write it out and then do another dot, it will give us a list of all of the materials. Just like when we typed in the property name, the name of the part, it gave us a list of properties before we wrote the property. So you can select a property, so a material here, such as wood, and that will do the exact same thing, okay? It will set the property. So there's two ways for you, and you can choose whichever one works for you. I prefer doing it this way because it gives you a list of materials. But you can use enums for all types of properties. Well, all types of like drop-down properties like this, okay, where you can select one from a list. And we also have brick color. So there's two ways to change the color of a part. So you could either do brick color, and brick color lets you set a preset color, which from this palette, okay. If you click on brick color, you can see a list of all these colors, and each color has a name which represents its RGB value. An RGB value is just a set of 3 values, red, green, and blue, and it makes up one big color. But brick color is simpler than that, and it just gives you the name of the color. So to set a brick color, we obviously have to say the name of the property, but we can't say it in speech marks like this, because brick color is a special type of property, and we have to say brick color.new. Because it's Roblox's color palette, and this is the way of picking a color. So you say brick color, and then you say .new, the new in lowercase, and then you have a set of parentheses or brackets after it, and then in quotation marks or speech marks inside of these brackets, you can write the name of the color. But it has to be a color from their palette, and it has to be spelt correctly, with the capitalization correct as well. You can see we have a capital R for really, but then it goes lowercase for red. Now if we go and try this out, you can see at the part it goes red, alright? And there's one more way of changing the colour with this colour palette if you wanted to give an RGB value. So instead of saying brick colour, you could just say colour. And don't forget, this is the American spelling, so those of you that are British, we spell it with a U. You have to spell it C-O-L-O-R, the American way. So when we set a colour, we can say colour 3. Because a colour 3 value is made up of 3 RGB values, okay? Colour 3, and then we can say dot from RGB, and then we can give a number between 0 and 255 for each colour. So the amount of red, the amount of blue, and the amount of green, and it will mix it together. Kind of imagine it like paints. If you're mixing red, green, and blue paint, you're obviously going to get a colour, right? So if you did 255, 0, 0, that would be completely red. But you shouldn't really have to understand this for now. I'm just showing you how colour 3 works. And you can see if I choose a colour on the colour picker, it gives me a red value, a green value, and a blue value. So 255, 157, and 37. 157 and 37. And that should give us the orange colour. Yeah, there we go. So that's how you change the colour. Now there's one last type of property I want to show you, and that is the behaviour properties. So anchored, archivable, can collide, locked, masters, etc. They're all checkboxes. And a checkbox is either on or off, so true or false. So there's 2 values you can choose from. And this is a Boolean value. A Boolean value is either true or false. It can't be anything else. So if it's true, then it's going to be, well, if we were looking at the anchored property, for example, okay, anchored, and we set this to true, if it's true, then it means yes, it is anchored. But if it's false, think of it as being unchecked or not anchored. So if we keep anchored as false, and we lift it up into the air, and we run the game, it's going to fall straight to the ground. But if we change anchored to true, which means that it is anchored and the anchored property is turned on, then there you go, it stays up in the air. And you can see again, in the properties window, we have managed to change the property from a script. Now, you may be thinking, this is really, really simple. Can we just get into the really good stuff? And I understand that, but we have to really go really, really simple to begin with the properties, because then we can do really, really cool stuff in the future. You just need to make sure you have a good understanding of how to reference, okay, by saying the service, and then getting the name of the part, parents, children, and the property as well, okay? I think we're going to leave it there for the first video. If you want to go to the next video, there'll be a thumbnail on your screen right now with an arrow, so go click it. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I produce lots of Roblox scripting videos to help you make your own Roblox games. Do take your time and don't give up on scripting. It may seem hard, but trust me, you'll be able to do it. Alright, thanks for watching.